I didn't know that. Nobody, very few people knew that. I was deceived. I was lied to. It was shocking. It was mind-numbing. It was awful. It was evil.
When Robert Morris filed a lawsuit against the elders at Gateway Church, little did he know that he was opening the door for more lawsuits to hit him. And not just that, his action has led to the uncovering of more truths. What he thought would be a simple legal matter over retirement pay has turned into a full-blown scandal. In his legal filing, he admitted to inappropriate behavior with a young girl when she was just... And what's even worse is that he claims he told the elders about this in 2005, 2007, and 2011. Yet they still kept him in his position, continued to trust him, and even agreed to pay him millions in retirement money. Now, Clemishire, the victim, is suing both Robert Morris and Gateway Church, accusing them of covering up the abuse she suffered. The elders at Gateway Church are denying that they knew she was 12 years old, but this is where it gets even more complicated. In his own legal filing, Robert Morris states that he informed the elders about the abuse and that they were fully aware of the victim's age. If that's the case, then the elders' claim of ignorance is not just a poor excuse. It's a lie. If they knew and chose to protect Robert Morris instead of reporting the abuse, they are just as guilty as he is. Keep in mind that under Texas Family Code, anyone who has reason to believe that a child or vulnerable adult has been abused is legally required to report it immediately to authorities. This law applies especially to pastors and ministry leaders who are entrusted with the care and well-being of their congregations. Failure to report suspected abuse is considered a Class A misdemeanor in Texas, punishable by up to 1 year in jail and/or a fine of up to $4,000. However, if the failure to report is done with the intent to conceal the abuse, it escalates to a state jail felony, a much more serious charge. This law is in place to protect the vulnerable, and when those in positions of trust, like church leaders, fail to uphold this responsibility, the consequences are severe. Now, one of the key people facing serious consequences in this case is not just Robert Morris himself, but his wife, Deborah Morris. If you've been following the case closely, you might have noticed something particularly striking during Robert Morris's first court appearance before Judge Cindy Pickerel in Osage County Court, Oklahoma. There was Deborah standing right next to her husband, holding his hand like a couple of lovebirds. It looked like a simple show of support, a sign of loyalty, a wife standing by her husband's side. But as the details of the case have unfolded, it becomes clear that her role in this matter is far more significant than just standing by her husband. In Clemishire's lawsuit, she claims that Deborah Morris, who was a prominent women's ministry leader at Gateway Church, knew about the abuse, quote, at least since 1987. It's a long time ago. And yet, despite this knowledge, she never reported it, never acted on it. Even worse, the suit claims that Deborah Morris made a phone call to Clemishire, who was just 17 at the time, to tell her that she forgave her. Can you imagine that? A young girl who has already been traumatized now being told by an adult figure, someone in a position of power, that she was forgiven? The implication was that Clemishire, the victim, was somehow at fault for the abuse. Think about that for a moment. Deborah Morris didn't call to express sympathy for the pain Clemishire had been through. She didn't call to check in on her well-being or to ensure that she received the care and support she needed. No, she called to gaslight Clemishire into believing that she was the problem, that the abuse was somehow her fault, and that she had to be forgiven. This wasn't an act of compassion. It was an act of manipulation. By calling Clemishire when she was 17, Deborah Morris showed that she knew exactly what had happened and she knew who was responsible. She knew that Clemishire was underage when the abuse occurred. She knew the truth. But instead of protecting the victim, she chose to cover it up, to shift the blame, to make the victim feel like she had done something wrong. It's chilling and it's cruel. Another set of people caught up in this lawsuit are the Gateway Church elders, who have been speaking from both sides of their mouths since this issue came to public knowledge. It's maddening how these so-called leaders of the church have continued to lie, obfuscate, and dodge accountability for their actions. Let's be clear here. The elders at Gateway Church knew about the abuse. They knew. In 2005 and again in 2011, according to the filing, Gateway Church elders and media executives received multiple emails detailing the abuse and specifically identifying Clemisher, known as Cindy in the court documents, as a minor at the time of the abuse. This wasn't just a vague complaint. These were direct reports, clear and specific, calling out the fact that she was underage when the abuse occurred. One of these emails was sent by Gateway elder Tom Lane, and it's damning. Tom Lane acknowledged Cindy's age at the time of the abuse. He knew exactly what had happened and exactly who was involved. And yet, despite this knowledge, the church did absolutely nothing to hold Robert Morris accountable.
We learned from this investigation about what elders knew before June 14th, 2024, and what actions they took or failed to take. And we now know that there were elders and employees at Gateway who knew before June 14th, 2024, that Cindy was 12 at the time the abuse began. Additionally, we also learned there were other individuals who were notified in the years prior to June 14th, 2024, about allegations of abuse, but they failed to inquire further. In other words, there are two groups. There's one group of individuals that knew without a doubt that Cindy Clemisher was 12 when the abuse began. And there is a second group who knew of allegations of abuse by Robert Morris, who had enough information that they should have led them to ask more questions, but they did not. Both groups are fundamentally wrong and simply cannot and will not be tolerated at this church. As a result, we have decided to draw a very bright line here based on biblical and moral standards and our values as a church family. And we can report to you that as of today, no individual in either group serves as an elder, is employed by, or works at Gateway Church. They have been removed.
While Gateway Church claims that they have fired all the elders who knew about the abuse, the reality is much more troubling. The lawsuit filed by Cindy, the victim, names more than a dozen current and former church elders and media directors as defendants. This is a massive problem for Gateway Church, and it speaks volumes about the extent of the cover-up. It's not just a matter of a few bad apples. This was a systemic failure that involved a significant number of people who were either directly involved or complicit in hiding the truth. Now think about the hypocrisy here. Morris, who was being paid millions, allowed to continue his leadership role and supported by these very elders, continued to preach sermons condemning sexual immorality while concealing his own sordid past. He stood in front of his congregation telling everyone else how wrong sexual sin was, how people should live upright lives, while hiding the fact that he himself had been engaged in horrific behavior with a child. It's not just a slap in the face to the church community, it's a betrayal, a massive betrayal of trust. How could anyone look up to him as a moral guide when he was secretly hiding such a dark truth? Another person who is now struggling to distance himself from the growing scandal is Pastor Brady Boyd. His name has come up alongside the controversy surrounding Robert Morris, and he's been trying to navigate the fallout with a mix of denial and half-truths.
He did confide in me that he had had a moral failure when he was 20 years old. And that's really all the details that he shared. It was like 15 years before they had gone through a restoration process. And I didn't have any reason to doubt that. I never saw anything in his life that would lead me to believe that he was not a man of character. In August of 2007, the search committee of New Life Church, called me, little old me, to come be the pastor here at New Life Church. But a year ago, next week, it came to light that Robert Morris had sexually assaulted a girl for 4 straight years. And it was shocking. It was mind-numbing. It was awful. It was evil. And he admitted to a 4-year relationship that started when he was 20 years old. The girl, Cindy Clemenshire, was 12 years old when the abuse started. And it happened for 4 years until he was 24 and she was 16. I didn't know that. Very few people knew that. When I was interviewed here 18 years ago, there was an amazing group of people, I think 5 men, 4 women, a 9-person search committee that did a worldwide search for the next senior pastor of New Life Church. And they were amazing people, great people. They did due diligence on me. Some of the questions they asked me, I've never been asked before, but you can understand they needed to make sure that if they were going to put another person in a position of leadership at New Life, that person needed to be vetted well. And so they asked me every question they could about every topic. And I answered every question honestly. I introduced them to my friends, my pastoral friends, one of which, of course, was Robert Morris. And they prayed, they heard the Lord, and that's why I became senior pastor of New Life Church. In the process, though, of them interviewing me, the search committee was brought, the fact that Cindy Clemenshire was 12 years old, that was brought to their attention. They found out. They heard in an interview with a family member that Cindy was 12 years old. And they immediately called the elders at Gateway Church and told them. And the elders of Gateway Church said, we're aware of that. It's been handled. Her family, her pastor has given Robert a thumbs up. They've gone through a process of restoration, and there's nothing left to do. It's already been reported. But the search committee didn't tell me. And so I made Robert an overseer of the church. And I want to say something to you this morning. Knowing what I know now, I absolutely regret that.
Boyd says that when he first heard about Robert Morris's abuse of a he was shocked. He claimed that he had no idea, that he never knew the details, and that it was a complete surprise. He goes on to say that when the New Life Church Search Committee was considering him for the senior pastor position, they had no idea either. According to Boyd, the search committee was informed in 2007 by Clemenshire's sister, Karen Black, that Morris had abused a 12-year-old girl, and they immediately contacted the Gateway Church elders. Boyd claims that the elders assured them the matter had already been handled, that Morris had gone through a solemnly restoration process, and that everything was reported. But here's the problem. Boyd was a Gateway elder himself at that time. In 2007, when the search committee made those inquiries, Boyd was already part of Gateway's leadership. He was directly involved, or at the very least, should have been. And the very emails he claims to have never seen were sent directly to him and others in the Gateway leadership. There's an email dated August 10, 2007, in which the search committee thanks Karen Black for sharing the details of her concerns, and it was addressed to Boyd. Yet Boyd now claims that he had no idea and was unaware of the allegations. How could he, as an elder, not know about this critical information? Furthermore, the investigation revealed that in 2011, Boyd received an anonymous email about Morris's abuse, explicitly detailing the accusations. Boyd's response to this is simply that he has no explanation for why he didn't see the email. It's a weak excuse, and it doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Boyd's claims about not seeing the critical emails regarding Robert Morris's abuse are becoming increasingly hard to believe. In his defense, he explained that he has 2 email accounts, one private email and one bulk email that is managed by an administrator. He claims that the emails from the Gateway elders and the anonymous tip about Morris's abuse went to his bulk email account, which he didn't personally manage and thus didn't see. How convenient. If Boyd had an administrator managing the bulk email account, wouldn't it stand to reason that the administrator would have to notify him about important emails coming through, especially ones that involve sensitive matters like allegations of abuse? How could an administrator not flag those emails for Boyd's attention, especially when they concern something as serious as a accusation? If this is true, then the administrator, too, is complicit in failing to bring this to Boyd's attention. The argument that Boyd somehow missed these emails because they went to the bulk account is a weak excuse at best. It's worth noting that Boyd was a senior pastor and a key leader in the church, and to suggest that emails detailing an abuse scandal didn't make it to his attention because of an email management system is both highly suspicious and incredibly convenient. If there were any emails that should have been flagged as urgent, surely these would have been among them. The more Boyd talks, the more it seems like he's trying to hide his knowledge of the situation rather than truly being unaware. This whole situation isn't just about Robert Morris or Pastor Brady Boyd. It's about a system of church leadership that failed to protect the most vulnerable. These leaders, including Boyd, had a responsibility to act when they had the information, and instead they chose to turn a blind eye, protect their own, and hide the truth. Boyd's efforts to minimize his role in this mess and cover up the facts only compound the damage already done.